Hello students. Today we will try to understand the stages of microspore development, how a microspore transforms into a mature pollen grain. Students, you all know that in each of the anther we have four microsporangia, and the center of the microsporangia is occupied by a homogeneous tissue known as sporogenous tissue. So let us take one of such sporogenous cell. So this is that sporogenous cell. We call it as pollen mother cell. This sporogenous cell is nothing but a myocyte. That means this is a diploid cell that can undergo meiosis. Myocytes are the diploid cells which can undergo meiosis. So we call this as pollen mother cell because the pollen grains will be developing from this cell. So it is pollen mother cell, also called microspore mother cell. Now in order to form the four cells, the four microspores out of this pollen mother cell, it has to undergo meiosis. So after meiosis 1, we get two cells, two microspores, which are termed as microspore dyad. Dyad means two microspores, it is microspore dyad, and after meiosis 2 we get four cells, a very rough representation of the four cells, which is called microspore tetrad, Tetrad. Since that is a collection of four cells, four microspores, so it's called microspore tetrad. I hope you can guess the number of chromosomes in the microspore dyad and microspore tetrad. Yes, these cells are haploid since these cells have originated after the cell division, meiosis. In meiosis, from one parent cell we get four daughter cells, and each of the four daughter cells has half the number of chromosomes, so from 2n n. Now let us take one of such cell. So this is one cell I have taken. Out of these four microspores I have taken only one cell, and here I have shown some details in a cell, in one of the microspore. So this is a microspore. Out of these four microspores I have taken one microspore. Let me label the details. You can see the outer structure is spiny in nature, yes or not? This is spiny in nature. This spiny outer structure is called exine. Okay, this spiny outer structure is called exine. Exine is made of one of the most resistant organic substance known. The substance is sporopollenin. Sporopollenin is one of the resistant substance known on earth. It is highly resistant to alkali, to acids, to high temperature, and for this sporopollenin, pollen grains are preserved as fossils. Now interior to the exine we have another layer which is continuous. This continuous layer is called intine. 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 Intine is made of cellulose and pectin. It is made of cellulose and pectin, also called pectocellulose, and this is entire. If you see the exine which is spiny in nature, it is not entire, means it has some gaps. This is gap number 1, gap number 2, and gap number 3. This gap is called, or these gaps are called germ pores. These gaps are called germ pores. So we can see 3 germ pores, and through this germ pore the pollen tube later comes out, or which you call as pollen germination. Now this one microspore will undergo mitosis. You must remember, students, in mitosis the chromosome number remains same. So this cell will undergo mitosis, and it will form two cells. Look at this diagram. Can you find the two cells? We have a big cell here, and in this big cell we have a small cell which is spindle shaped, that is attached at the bottom of the cell. Yes or no? So we have two cells, one big cell and one small cell which is attached at the bottom. This big cell is called vegetative cell, also called tube cell, because this cell later helps in the formation of pollen tube, and a small cell which is called generative cell. So after mitosis from a single microspore, we get two cells, one big cell called vegetative cell or tube cell, and one spindle-shaped cell which is present at the bottom, that is called generative cell. Now students, you find one irregular nucleus of this vegetative cell. This irregular nucleus of the vegetative cell is called tube nucleus. Sorry, the nucleus of the vegetative cell is called tube nucleus. Now look at this diagram. Here you can see what is the difference between this diagram and this diagram. I hope you have noticed. In this diagram you can find the generative cell to be floating in the cytoplasm of the vegetative cell. Yes. Now in this stage what happens? The generative cell, which was earlier attached at the bottom, now it is floating in the cytoplasm of the vegetative cell. Such a condition of a microspore or a pollen grain, such a condition is called two-cell stage. It is called two-cell stage of a pollen grain or a microspore. And in 60% of the angiosperm, 60% of the angiosperm, pollen grains are shed at two-cell stage. In 60% of the angiosperm, okay. But in rest 40% angiosperm, what happens? This generative cell, so this is the vegetative cell and this small is the generative cell. This generative cell will undergo mitosis. It will undergo mitosis once again, and this will form two male gametes. So these two are the two male gametes, the plural of gamete, two male gametes. Okay, only the generative cell will undergo mitosis and lead to the formation of two male gametes. So in 60% of the angiosperm, the pollen grains are shed from the anther by the bursting of the anther and the two-cell stage, but in some of the cases the pollen grains are shed at three-cell stage. Let us look at this diagram. Now what we can see here, that the pollen tube, this is the pollen tube. The pollen tube has come out. The pollen tube has come out, which is called as germination of pollen grain. The pollen tube has come out. What is at the tip of the pollen tube? This is nothing but the vegetative nucleus, also called tube nucleus, because this is the nucleus of the vegetative cell. This entire is a vegetative cell. So this is the vegetative nucleus or the tube nucleus which helps in the formation of this pollen tube. And behind this vegetative nucleus we find these two male gametes. These are the two male gametes following the vegetative nucleus. So in this way, through one of the germ pore, the pollen tube emerges, which is formed by the action of the vegetative or the tube nucleus, and behind them the two male gamete follows up to the ovule, where they enter the embryo sac, and that leads to the formation of that leads to the process called double fertilization and triple fusion, which we will see afterwards. So this is all about the stages in the development of a microspore into a mature pollen grain. Students, if you have any queries, you can directly contact me through my WhatsApp number. Thank you.